I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury for Thursday, August 4th, 2016. We're going to have the invocation and pledge by Ms. Mayo. If you would, please stand.
Thank you, God, for giving us one more day to raise our voice and sing your praise. Where there is discord, bring union. Where there is doubt, dear God, bring faith. Where there is despair, bring hope. Where there is hate, bring love. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That was beautiful, Shelly.
Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Yes, sir. Mr. Angelpont?
Here.
Mr. Barris?
Here.
Mr. Graham?
Here.
Mr. Collins?
Here.
Mr. Farnham?
Here.
Mr. Guidry?
Here.
Mr. Guillory?
Here.
Mr. Hunter?
Here.
Mr. Latour is ill this evening. Ms. Mayo?
Here.
Vice President McMillan?
He's over there.
Here.
Mr. Scott?
Here.
Mrs. Trimmy? Here. Mr. White?
Here.
And President Landry.
Here.
You do have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Kathy. Mr. McMillan.
Thank you. As y'all know, I missed last meeting. I think Kathy may have said I was scheduled for brain surgery, but it was basically a colonostomy. But I challenge all the people of Calcasieu Parish.
Well, they were in the right area anyway.
I had to go ahead and go there. But what I really want to do, although Kathy was giving me a hard time, if you're 50 years old or older, go in, get checked, and make sure to err on the right side of that. I went in and did that, and everything, the results were just fine. And I challenge you at age 50.
So for one day in your life, you were the cleanest guy in
I was there. Wow. I've been there, done that.
That was
Okay.
the only
all
day
need
he
to know
wasn't
that.
full of it, right, Ms. Trimmy?
Well, did they find a brain is what I want.
They said it was somewhere up there.
Okay.
I think your message had a good point.
Oh, we needed that. We needed that.
Okay, we're going to come back to item 4, 6 o'clock action. Item 5, take appropriate action on applications for liquor and beer permits. Mr. Crane.
Mr. President, we have two applications before you tonight. We recommend they be approved.
So moved. Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Guillory and a second by Mr. Guidry. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 6,
Move on to six.
consideration of approving payment of all current invoices. I have a motion by Mr. Angelpont and a second by Mr. Barris. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 7, consideration of approving the minutes of the regular meeting of the police jury dated July 7th, 2016.
So moved.
Motion by
Second.
Mr. McMillan, second by Mr. Guidry. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 8, consideration of approving the Public Works Committee report dated July 28th, 2016. Mr. Farnham.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Public Works Committee met last Thursday on July 28th to discuss the following items. Item A, acknowledge the appearance by Mr. Larry Rader, candidate for the 3rd Congressional District. Item B, Mr. Peter Williams was scheduled to appear before the committee but did not attend. Item C, recommended that a resolution be adopted approving an amendment and extension to the solid waste contract between the Police Jury and Waste Management of Louisiana, LLC, for solid waste collection and disposal in the unincorporated areas of wards 2 through 8. Item D, recommended that a resolution be adopted approving active sale agreements for the purchase of property for the Tank Farm Road Site Distance Project. Item E, recommended that a resolution be adopted approving an active donation agreement for the Metzger Road Bridge Project. Item F, recommended that a resolution be adopted approving expropriation of property for the Coach Williams Drive Extension Project. Item G, recommended that a resolution be adopted approving active sale agreements for the Coach Williams Drive Extension Project. Item H, recommended that a resolution be adopted approving an active sale agreement for the Coach Williams Extension Project. Item I, recommended that a resolution be adopted approving a temporary construction servitude agreement for the Coach Williams Drive Extension Project. Item J, recommended that a resolution be adopted approving an active sale agreement for the Wright Road Site Distance Triangle Project. Item K, recommended that a resolution be adopted authorizing the submittal of an application to the local metropolitan planning organization, which allows for following projects to be eligible for state and federal funds: U.S. Highway 171, Broad Street to South English Bayou Court, and Louisiana Highway 384, Big Lake Road to McNeese Street. Item L, recommended that the parish engineer be authorized to advertise for Calcasieu Parish Project Number 2016-10, Metzger Road Bridge Replacement. All of these met with full approval, and I move to approve all items.
Thank you, Mr. Farnum. Okay, we had a motion by Mr. Farnum and a second by Mr. McMillan. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 9, consideration of approving the Agenda Committee report dated July
Move on
28,
9.
2016. Got a motion by Mr. Scott and a second by Mr. Farnum. Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 10, consideration of
Move on
adopting
10.
a resolution approving
Second.
an extension to the contract with Osborne Associates, Inc. for sign face and sheeting material for an additional 6-month period. I have a motion by Mr. Anderpont, second by Mr. Guidry. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 11, consideration of rescinding the following ordinances with respect to purchases of the respective properties.
11 of both bullets.
A, ordinance number 6661, which is 222 North Bilbo Street in Ward 3, Lake Charles. Item B is ordinance number 6656, which was the 2500 block of Saunier Street in Ward 3, Lake Charles. I had a motion by Mr. McMillan, a second by Mr. Collins. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 12, consideration
12.
of adopting a resolution approving an amendment to the cooperative endeavor agreement between the Policery and the City of Sulphur to revise the CEA scope. I had a motion by Mr. Farnum, second by Mr. Collins. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 13, take appropriate actions on bids received by the parish purchasing agent for the following. A, Calcasieu Parish Project Number 2016-08, which is the Pinecone Drive extension with various drainage improvements in Calcasieu Parish Ward 1.
Move on 13, all bullets.
The parish engineer recommends that the low bid in the amount of $2,271,276.52 of McManus Construction LLC be accepted. Item B is for one 1/2-ton crew cab pickup truck, 2 3/4-ton extended cab pickup trucks, and 1 1/2-ton extended cab pickup truck to be used by engineering and public works and specifically the mosquito control and stormwater department. Had a motion by Mr. White, second by Ms. Mayo. Any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 14, consideration of accepting the 901 Lakeshore Drive building window hardening for floors 2 through 11 project is substantially complete.
Second.
Somehow I knew that was going to be Mr. Brame. Got a motion by Mr. Brame, second by Mr. Hunter. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 15, take appropriate action on the terms of the following members of various boards and districts.
Move on 15, all votes.
Item A, Mr. Donald D. Coleman, Community Center and Playground District Number 3 of Ward 7. There's a motion to appoint Mr. James Laird. Is that, yeah, we'll do them one at a time.
Move to appoint.
Okay, we got a motion to appoint Mr. James Laird by Mr. Barris and a second by Mr. Brame. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. B is Carrie Vick, Community Center and
defer.
Playground District Number
Second.
7 of Ward 2. Got a motion to defer by Mr. White, to defer for 30 days, Mr. White, and a second by Mr. Scott. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item C, Mr. George Eugene Miller,
Wayne C. Linscomb.
resignation of
Second.
Ward 5 Fire Protection District Number 1. Ms. Trimmy moves to appoint Mr. Wayne Linscomb.
I would like to say something, though.
You have the floor. Go ahead, Ms. Trimmy.
I want to thank George Eugene Miller. We all call him PC. He's still chairman of the Ward 5 or the Starks Water Board. He served on the fire board for, I would say, over 20 years. He moved off because he felt like some younger folks, maybe need to get the hang of it and kind of learn what public service is about. But he is hanging in with me on the water board, so they do good work. And all of these people that serve on these boards, they do yeoman work from all districts, from all Calcasieu Parish. And we're blessed to have such good board members that take this so seriously. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Ms. Trimmy. Okay, I had a motion by Ms. Trimmy, a second by Mr. Scott. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item D, Mr. Kip Coltrane, it's a resignation for Ward 4, Fire Protection District Number 2.
Move to appoint Cody Clement.
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Barris to appoint Mr. Cody Clement, and a second by Mr. Farnum. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. E, Mr. David Connor of the Calcasieu Parish Planning and Zoning Board had passed away some months ago. And we have a motion to appoint Mr. Kyle Lane by Mr. Brame and a second by Mr. Hunter. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item F,
Move to appoint Ms. Shelley Mayo.
Mr. Hal McMillan resigned from the Imperial Calcasieu Regional Planning and Development Commission. Have a motion to appoint Ms. Shelley Mayo by Mr. Scott and a second by Mr. McMillan.
Shelley did.
Is there any discussion?
Discussion.
Oh, go ahead, Mr. McMillan.
Hey, I had a great opportunity to serve on this board for a number of years. As we do rotate some of these opportunities for some of the younger jurors coming up, I'm honored that Shelley stepped up to take this position. I know you'll do a great job, and thank you for moving in there for me. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. McMillan. Item G, Mr. Jerry Michael Dansby, Gravity Drainage District Number 4 of Ward 3. Need a motion to appoint Mr. Mike Whitler.
Move to appoint Mr. Mike Whitler.
I have a motion by Mr. Brame, second by Mr. Farnum. Is there any discussion? I'm sorry, Mr. Collins. My ears deceived me. Is there any further discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. H, Mr. Holland Gilry, Gravity Drainage District Number 4 of Ward 3. Have a motion to reappoint by Mr. Collins and a second by Mr. Guidry. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. I, Ms. Bernadette Stevens, Gravity
to reappoint
Drainage
Ms.
District
Stevens.
Number 4 of Ward 3. I have a motion to reappoint by Mr. Brame and a second by Mr. Gilry. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. J, Mr. Martin T. Benoit,
reappoint
Gravity
Benoit.
Drainage District Number 8
Second.
of Ward 1. I have a motion to reappoint by Mr. White and a second by Mr. Collins. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. K, Mr. Darby Quinn, Gravity
to
Drainage
reappoint
District
Mr.
Number
Quinn.
8 of Ward
Second.
1. I have a motion by Mr. White and a second by Mr. Collins. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. L, Mr. William D. Laverne, Gravity Drainage
Second.
District Number 8 of Ward 1. Had a motion by Mr. Collins, second by Mr. White. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. M, Mr. Blaine
Move to
Harrington,
reappoint.
Gravity Drainage
Second.
District Number 9 of Ward 2. I have a motion by Mr. Gilry to reappoint and a second by Mr. Guidry. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. N, Mr.
Move to
Craig
reappoint.
Schultz, Gravity Drainage District Number 9 of Ward 2. I have a motion to reappoint by Mr. Gilry and a second by Mr. Collins. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. O, Mr. Ricky
Move
Guidry,
to
Gravity
reappoint.
Drainage District Number 9 of Ward 2. Got a motion by Mr. White to reappoint, second by Ms. Trimmy. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. P, Mr. Darren Terrio, resignation on Recreation District Number 1 of Ward 8. I have a motion by Mr. Gilrey to reappoint and a second by, to appoint Ms. Beverly Martin, and a second by Mr. McMillan. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Q, Mr. Larry
Move to reappoint
Mouton.
Mr. Mouton. Second.
Waterworks District Number 9 of Ward 4, have a motion by Mr. Farnham to reappoint and a second by Mr. Barris. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. R, Mr. David Wayne Nezat, Ward 4 Fire Protection District Number 4.
Move
We
to
have
appoint
a-
Mr. Charles Bucky LaBeouf and Mr., if I can have the floor for just a moment.
Go ahead, Mr. We have a motion by Mr. Andrew Pont to appoint Mr. Charles Bucky LaBeouf, and we have a second by Mr. Collins. Mr. Andrew Pont, you have the floor.
Thank you. David didn't really have a choice but to resign. He has heart problems and probably looking at a heart transplant. So when it's in order, I would like to have some kind of a little, either a plaque or something prepared for him, and see if he can come get it at some point in time. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Andrew Pont. Okay, is there any further discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. S, Mr. Jeffrey
Move to reappoint Mr. Coates.
Industrial Development Board of Calcasieu Parish. I have a motion by Mr. Guidry to reappoint and a second by Mr. Collins. Is there any discussion? Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 16 is an advised item that the Representative Stephen Dwight has appointed Mr. Frank Max Calderera II to replace Mr. Andrew Donald Bertrand as a member of the Ward 1 Economic Development Board. Item 17 is September 2016 advised items. Y'all just make sure you look at those. Say they're not highlighted. I'm not going to read them all. Item 18, other advised that the adjudicated property will be offered for sale by the Director of the Division of Planning and Development on August 30th, 2016. And we will temporarily adjourn and come back in 9 minutes to take care of item 4 at 6 o'clock. We are adjourned.